As you've surely already heard, the legendary actor and comedian Bob Saget has sadly passed away. It's no exaggeration to say that he was a bona fide television icon, which got me wondering what impact he had on the video game industry. What I found was certainly surprising to say the least. Mr. Saget is best known for two long-running 90s television roles, Danny Tanner on Full House and the Netflix reboot Fuller House, and the host of the OG of crowdsourcing, America's Funniest Home Videos. I can't imagine how America's Funniest Home Videos would translate to a video game adaptation, so I wasn't surprised to find no such game exists. More surprising was that even with its popularity, Full House never got so much as a cheesy platforming game. I mean, there were two different attempts at an ALF game. Does that mean that Bob Saget hasn't offered his talents, or at least his likeness, to any video games at all? Actually, as far as I can tell, he appeared in just 2 games, and luckily for you, I did my part in preserving Mr. Saget's gaming legacy by playing both of them. First up is an adaptation of the trivia game show 1 vs 100 for the Nintendo DS. It's more or less your standard trivia game, most similar in presentation and mechanics to something like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, only more obnoxious. The hook is that you are competing against 100 other contestants, and you aren't able to actually win until all 100 of the AI contestants get a question wrong and are therefore eliminated. The game is overall exactly as bargain bin worthy as you'd expect, with hardly any extra features or even animated menus to speak of. The trivia questions are pretty awful, ranging from awkwardly worded to completely out of left field. I did quite a bit of looking and couldn't find any connection between the question and any of these 3 actresses. I just had to guess to get through. Seriously, if anyone can explain it to me, I'd greatly appreciate it. And I got multiple repeated questions through one run. Plus, even if the game was polished and sleek, any of these trivia games where you can choose to take the money you have or continue to try to win more will never translate well to a video game. Why would anyone ever take the money and end their run short of winning the biggest prize? What kind of deranged psychopath would do that? With all that said, the whole thing is guided by a surprisingly decent character model of the legend himself, and while he only has a very small handful of voiced lines that play over and over, the way he says,
"The correct answer is A,"
is just too good. In the end, it's not a great game, but it is a decent way to spend a little more time with a digital pocket-sized Bob Saget. Much more interesting is a forgotten little gem called the Tuttles Madcap Misadventures. Get ready because this one is truly bizarre. Released back in 2007 for PC and Mac by renowned game developer Legacy Games, whose slogan is, "Not kidding, amazing games, amazing value." It's a basic platformer punctuated with comic-style cutscenes between levels. So what makes it so strange? First of all, it has a surprisingly star-studded cast, starring William Shatner as the voice of the family's minivan, Vance Shepard. Don't worry, I'll explain that in a second. Ashley Tisdale of High School Musical fame playing Jess, the daughter of the Tuttle family, Jamie Lee Curtis as the mom, and of course, Bob Saget as Barry Tuttle, the father of the Tuttle family, and also featuring an appearance by none other than Dave Coulier to voice some vaguely problematic island natives. Fair warning, full spoilers for the plot of the Tuttles Madcap Misadventures will follow, so feel free to go complete the game first before finishing this video. The Tuttle family is planning a vacation to the Alamo to see a reenactment of the famous Battle of the Alamo. For some reason, and without any further details, the father Barry has souped up the family minivan to be some kind of futuristic flying vehicle, complete with an AI voice assistant modeled after the likeness of fictional TV star Vance Shepard. The family departs in their flying van, only to abruptly run out of fuel and crash in a desert, where they meet a character known only as the Australian. After a bit too much setup, the Australian agrees to trade some 200-octane fuel in exchange for a paper checklist. This high-powered fuel ends up being too much for the car to handle, and it crashes again, this time right into the ocean. The Tuttle boy Zach explores the ocean floor until he stumbles upon the parts to assemble a new jet engine for the minivan. The family takes off again, and this time crashes for seemingly no reason on a tropical island, where they meet some natives who are strongly implied to be cannibals. The family escapes and gets separated. This is the first point in the game where you get to play as the sister, who alternates between a terrible and
I hope no one sees me jumping.
every time she jumps. Remember, this is a platformer, so there's a lot of jumping. It's awful.
I hope no one sees me jumping.
Eventually, each member of the family is captured by the natives, and Barry is offered as a sacrifice to a female King Kong knockoff, as she apparently has a taste for middle-aged men. The remaining members of the family fight off the giant ape, rescue Barry, and take off in the van again with no mention of it ever having crashed or what caused them to land in the first place. They eventually do make it to the Alamo, but they just missed the reenactment of the battle. Still, they decide they had a great time along the way just the same. Clearly, this story is just gibberish nonsense, but what makes this game so difficult to wrap my head around is that it is clearly budget shovelware, but in a lot of ways, it's also really decent shovelware, I guess. The controls of the game are actually quite responsive in a way I wasn't anticipating given the budget nature of the game, and every level adds either a new enemy type, mechanic, or both, as well as a distinct art style with some pretty well done backgrounds that only sometimes get cut off by the edge of the screen. It's also got some big name talent on its voice cast, all of whom delivered their lines with as much enthusiasm as you could reasonably expect from a game like this.
And second of all, fanny packs never went out of style.
And just to make sure this vacation doesn't end in total disaster, I'm gonna run to the grocery store right now and pick up some precautionary items.
Strange Yelp jumps aside. On the other hand, it's mind-numbingly easy and the script is not only nonsense, but the attempts at humor rarely land. At best, it's kind of amusing in a way if you're a sucker for cringe humor, but I wouldn't expect anything more than that. I can't help but wonder, who was this game for? Who did Legacy Games think was going to pay for this? I suppose some secrets are just destined to be lost to time. Still, the Tuttles Madcap Misadventures is one of only 2 games to feature the late great Bob Saget, and so at least for today, it's a game worth remembering. So is Bob Saget truly a gaming icon? Obviously not, what kind of question is that? But while he may not have left much of a mark in the gaming industry, that doesn't do anything to diminish his accomplishments elsewhere in his career. Mr. Saget, we forgive you for the Tuttles, and you will be missed. To those who stuck around, check out this full clear of the Tuttles Madcap Misadventures. As far as I know, this might be the only documented full clear of the game, and therefore I submit to you the speedrunning world record, perhaps? Just saying.